Let's get ready to put these potatoes together. This is going to be what's called a dirty potato. What we're going to do is we're going to take this Colorado grown potato and we're going to stripe it. When you stripe a potato, what you're doing is you're just taking off some of the skin. I want some of the skin on this potato to make them kind of a home style effect. Also, the skin has a lot of the flavor in a potato. Now when you're striping a potato, you decide in your mind, you taste this dish in your mind, decide how much skin you actually want on it. I like it like this. Now when I cut this potato, the potato's round, so you have to be careful with it. So when you take your knife, hold the potato firm, and take this potato and put it on the flat side down. Pinch your knife, slice the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, pieces about this big. Now we're going to boil this for about 10 to 15 minutes. I've actually taken the liberty of having some already pre-cut. We're going to put these in some boiling water, and I need to check on my lamb. While our potatoes are cooking, we're going to prepare our asparagus. When you get asparagus like this, it's going to have a little bit of a woody end, and you want this to be tender. That's why we selected such nice asparagus. So you take your potato peeler, or your vegetable peeler, or your peeler, and you're just going to kind of trim the edges of this off. And you want to make sure you've gotten past the woody parts. Now if you notice, if it's still woody at the end, and worst case scenario, if it doesn't trim up right, just grab a handful like this and give them a chop. It still works. We're going to add these to the pan. We're going to flame this asparagus with a little bit of fine cognac. We're also going to use some heavy butter, a little sea salt. It's going to be great, but in the meantime, we have to drain our potatoes and get ready to prepare this meal. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. We've drained these potatoes thoroughly. I want to get all the extra moisture out of them because I don't want them to taste watery. I want them to be rich and creamy and wonderful. What we're going to do is we're going to leave a little heat on this pan. They're going to go right back in the first pan. I'm going to add quite a bit of butter. Let me tell you something, butter and mashed potatoes, it's meant to be. I'm also going to use whole cream because I'm not that concerned about calories today. I'm concerned about taste. I'm going to add just enough to help whip these up. Of course, a little salt, and of course, my $2 masher. When we take these, you want to really work them. You're going to take them from the sides of the pan, and you're going to work these pretty hard. And you want your potatoes to be piping hot. So when we serve these potatoes, then you want them steaming. This is going to be the centerpiece of our lamb dish. Just work them up real good. If you need something, a little additional moisture as you're working it, just add a little more cream. If you find that you want to reduce the calories on this particular dish, feel free to use a little olive oil instead of butter. Use some whole milk instead of cream. You can do substitutions. This just happens to be a dish in the way I like it. If you look at the way I look, I'm not afraid of butter. These are all mashed up pretty good. They're kind of rustic like I want them, because this is Rocky Mountains now. And we're going to take these and we're going to kind of put them off the side. I'm going to take them off of the heat. And in the interim, we're going to use some of our butter here, and we're going to get our pan of asparagus going. We're going to make sure we have a good sense of heat on this thing. Once again, lots of butter. You're going to see this thing really get going here. And it's real quick. If it smokes on you, take it off the heat. Okay? We're going to add our asparagus to this. Now this is going to cook pretty quick. Asparagus is very, very tender. You want to add a little salt to this. Make sure you leave it, just put just enough in there. And then of course the piece de resistance is a little more of that cognac. We're going to use this cognac to flame this dish. It's going from this pan to this plate, and it's going to be on fire, so I want you to be careful. I use my fingers, of course, because I'm that guy. Little cognac, once again. We're going to put quite a bit on this because it's going to reduce. We're going to get this thing going here. Come on, come on. I need you to do that for me. While this is actually cooking, you're going to find it's going to start braising. We're going to add it to this pan. It's reducing, it's reducing, it's reducing. They're looking nice and green. The green in this is actually shimmery. At that point, we're going to add it right to this pan. And now, some quick adjustments. This is going to go on our table. The last thing you want to do with this, Add a little bit more salt to it. And of course, as always, garnish it with your choice. We're going to take our potatoes. Now make sure they're mashed right. Just double check them. Taste them. Make sure there's enough salt. I like a little more salt. I'd actually like to add my sour cream at this point. I'm going to put quite a bit. Okay? What sour cream is going to do, just like we would with crumb fresh, it's going to give us a very, very unique taste. A little bit tart, and it's going to be contrary to the lamb. Now we're going to take this, and now these are earthy. Now you want them to stay that way. If you want them whipped softer, whip them softer. If you want to go a little more rustic than I did, feel free to. Now I'm going to show you a trick I learned. It's called dumping this. We're going to dump this right in the middle. Whatever's left here, we're going to take it just like that. Now we've got our potatoes. And with our potatoes, we're going to add some lamb. We're going to serve this banquet style because we're going to feed the crew today. Let's check on our lamb. Oh, be careful, this is going to be kind of hot. We're going to set it right here, let it rest. While this is resting, let's clean up our area here because we're going to need to. Move our pans over. This is going to be our new prep area. Let's get our cutting board over. Let's get our sharp knife out because we're going to need this sharp knife. When you're making lamb or any meat, you want to give it time to rest. And one thing we have to do is let this lamb rest for a couple seconds. And while it's resting, we're going to take what's left in this pan here and we're going to make a pan sauce to go with this. Now, we're going to take some of the extra stuff out that we're not going to need, some stuff like that. We're going to use a little wine. We're going to use this Sebastiani Merlot. It's very, very nice. And here's a trick. We opened this wine yesterday for a little party we had. We're going to use it to cook with today. As this thing heats up, we're going to deglaze this pan. This pan is hot. You'll put it right here. Be careful, it's going to be hot. It's going to sizzle a little bit. Now we're going to reduce this as far as humanly possible. And this is going to be, put some heat on this thing. This is going to be our sauce for our lamb. Okay, we're going to move this. Going to get this pan out of the way here. This is going to reduce. And while this is reducing, we're going to cut up this lamb. Now this looks really, really good. And be careful with it, okay? Because it's going to be very, very delicate. And just like that. Just like, oh, let's watch that bone there. Just like that. This is just looking really great. Just like that. And so on. We're going to finish cutting this up real good here. We want big pieces. This is Colorado lamb, and we want it to look like Colorado lamb. Be careful when you're cutting this not to take away from your encrusting that you put on this lamb. Now let's keep cutting this, cutting this, cutting this. I think the crew looks pretty hungry, so we're going to make sure we have enough. I think that looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to arrange this while this is reducing. Now we're going to take this. This is going to be a very rustic ranch style dish. Lamb has been raised and eaten by Coloradans for, well, since Colorado has been Colorado. We take a lot of pride in our lamb. Colorado is one of the few places that you'll find quality lamb like this. We're going to make a little crown here. We're going to kind of keep with the crown theme. If you notice, our sauce is reducing, and this is going to be a little timing on this dish. We're going to have to watch this really carefully. I think that looks pretty good. Let me put one more just to take it kind of to that edge right there. We'll wipe your hands right here. Now here's a trick. This is reducing, and depending on how rapidly it reduces is going to depend on a few things. The amount of heat, the amount of liquid in this, of course, the type of wines you use. There's a lot going into a sauce. I'm actually going to add something to this. I'm going to add a little bit of brown flour to this. I've pre-browned this flour, and the reason I've done that is going to bring this sauce right back. It's going to thicken it for me. Let's thicken this sauce. A little brown flour, not too much because it goes a long way. Don't burn yourself. That beautiful burgundy sauce. We're going to put it right over the top here. Okay, put this right here. Let's dress this up a little bit too. I like rosemary because rosemary is kind of the theme of this particular piece. We're also going to go back to our olive oil and we're going to drizzle the edges of this plate and a little of the lamb with a little bit of this olive oil. And give it a nice richness. And if you look at this dish is absolutely gorgeous. Got our asparagus, we have our potatoes, we have our lamb. It's going to be time to eat. Let's match some wine up with this. We'll sit down. Let's enjoy this beautiful meal.